IVM. On my flight to San Francisco last month, I saw this documentary called Being Serina, which is about Serena Williams' life after she found out she was pregnant. And guys, I don't know if you guys know this, but she won the Australian Open while she was 6 weeks pregnant, and that's awesome. And I would highly recommend you see this TV series yourself, but I want to share about what I learned from these first three episodes that I saw, which were titled Fear, Change and Strength respectively. Yes, she's one of the most inspiring and persevering athletes of our time, and her sister Venus Williams' story from rags to riches is a clear example of what hard work, grit and focus can do. There are many kinds of people, and either you would be someone who thinks that they are very special but things are not going right for you, or you could be someone who is always doubting themselves and it's preventing you from even attempting to do things that your true dreams are made of. Or you could be someone who is really going after your goals and achieving them, but time and again you're fearful or have some kind of self-doubt. And what ties all of us together? The same emotion. When Serena delivered her baby and she was back on court to practice, she was doubtful about her talent and her skill. She was fearful. She was fearing the change from traveling and competing in front of her fans to actually being in the safety of her home and taking care of herself during pregnancy. We have the same emotions, whether we are international athletes or we are everyday athletes in our own backyards. We fear change. We do doubt our own strengths. Each phase of our life, be it career, be it finding a partner, be it spirituality, or be it soul searching, demands us to be stronger in many different ways. But what separates the champions is the courage. And in Michael Hyatt's words, change is the willingness to act in spite of the fear. Welcome to the Kinetic Living podcast, and this is me, Coach-Urmi, and today I have someone who is a very interesting guest, and she's from Bangalore, but more than that, for me, she's a person who's full of laughter, strength, and always up for some mischief. And she's my partner in crime for that. Yes. Professionally, I've known her for almost 3 years now, because since we became Nike trainers together. So that should give you guys some clue. But she has also found Sweat by Swetha, which is a fitness consulting company for setting up gyms and making sure that they are profitable. And she is here, and I'm so happy that she's here because she's going to provide a very interesting perspective to the fitness line of work. Hi, Swetha.
Hi, Urmi. How's it going?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks.
A lot of people may not know that you also were an athlete before you started out in this fitness industry. Can you, do you want to tell me a little bit more about how you went from being a player to now completely as a professional?
Right. So my place in fitness is, or my love for fitness is very strongly rooted in sport. In fact, yes, I know, I'm all about the sport. So when I was obviously in school and all through college, I played sport, day in and day out. In fact, I played hockey professionally. And I think like most people in sport in our country, we had to make a choice. So I had to make the choice somewhere around the 10th grade, whether to take on academics or sport. And at the time, I think it was a fairly obvious answer to go with academics, because there was not much of a career in sport, not much of a future in sport, especially being a female athlete playing a sport like hockey. So I took the academic route. I quit sport and dived into books and studies and all of that.
I can't imagine.
I can be quite the nerd, by the way. Right?
Yeah.
No, split personality. And then I went to Canada to pursue an undergraduate degree in economics. When I returned from that stint in Canada, I worked as a consultant with Ernst & Young for 2 years.
Okay.
And it was pretty much at the end of those 2 years that I got quite frustrated with the desk job. As you know me quite well, I'm quite jumpy and I can't be sitting around in one place for too long. And that was around the time that I started actively looking for something in the sports/fitness space.
Okay.
I had the good fortune of meeting the founder of Zella, which was a upmarket health club. At the time, and
in Bangalore,
right. And he at the time was just had the idea of setting up this really luxury fitness space, and through a conversation I said, you know what, I'm going to quit my corporate job and come on board and work with you. So it was a startup, so I got a little bit of exposure in every field of setting up a health club. And we did that. It took about 1.5 years, I think, to set it up.
Okay, so I'm just going to pause you here for 2 seconds. One is, guys, I really want you to think about what she said, that she decided to dive into books because being a female athlete in a sport like hockey being our national sport, and at the same time she doing so well in her own field, then also she chose how to go to books. And it is a story of many athletes, even of course like 10 years back and even today. And even today we are constantly focusing on academics, and I cannot stress you enough, being in sports myself since school, that how much it helps in studies. And of course there is research showing that it improves your cognition, your focus, but what it does for you psychologically is so important, right? As a kid, in terms of developing your confidence or even the ability to manage your interests versus your duties.
Absolutely.
Right? And the second thing you spoke about was it exposed, after starting to work with Zella, it exposed you to different sides of setting up a gym.
Right.
Do you want to explain that? Because what I've seen is right now, most people who are trying to get into fitness only think that they have to get into training or coaching and or becoming a teacher or owning a gym space and then managing it. But they're not aware that how many roles can a person play in the entire fitness industry.
With regards to I'll talk about my experience in Zella. Again, it was a startup and we were setting up a health club. So a lot, and as a startup, one can imagine there's not one fixed role for you. You're sort of jumping around doing a little bit of everything. So that gave me exposure to the different facets of setting up a commercial gym space, whether it is, purchase of equipment, looking at the interiors and understanding what works, what motivates people when they come in there to train. Of course, hiring and recruiting people. What I realized is in the fitness industry, it's very, very, very important to have the right attitude, because when people walk into a gym or a fitness space, they're looking for that motivation. It's a big enough struggle for them to bring themselves in there, right? So you have to pick the right kind of people with the right attitude who can really sort of like motivate people to, get a good workout. In a commercial gym space, there's the sales team, there is customer care. So the sales obviously handles the sales of membership. Customer care handles, the members once they've become members, keep in touch with them, make sure that their program is going well. Then, of course, you have the whole technical team, and their focus is training. But all of these teams have to work together in order to provide that customer satisfaction. When somebody comes into a fitness center to train, it's not just about getting the workout, it's about an entire experience. And I think that's what my time in Zella and then subsequent projects also taught me, is that it's not just about getting a physical space, putting equipment in there and throwing in some trainers. It's a lot deeper than that. So if you are interested in fitness and maybe you don't want to get on the floor and train, there are different avenues for you to sort of be in the space and not have to do the technical work of it.
Basically you should be excited about training, not 100%. Necessarily you're teaching or coaching, right?
100%.
And since you spoke about making sure that everyone works together, I think a lot of people forget that attitude is so important, that many times I've seen that coaches or people who are just trying to get into fitness right now, they expect things to be done for them. And like you said, when you're in a startup, and I mean, I've built a startup, Kinetic Living. You yourself are building your own company. You know that you can easily switch roles. Like 1 minute you're talking with the who's who and talking about your brand, and second time you are in the gym and you're trying to
lift weights,
exactly,
put stuff in place,
exactly. So I've seen a lot of people don't have that in place.
Yeah.
Which I feel if they rectify or they understand now towards
Absolutely.
starting out,
Yeah.
they'll not have that attitude when they go to the gym. Because
100%.
even today when I look for people in my team, I'm trying to look at people who are enthusiastic,
Yeah.
who get excited about training,
Yeah.
and more worried about the customer experience rather than, oh, this is not my job.
100%. I mean, no, you made that point very accurately. Skills can always be learnt. Attitude is something that honestly, like, you either have it or you don't. To a
Yeah.
certain extent, yes, you can improve
Mold
your
it,
attitude.
yeah.
But I think during my hiring process for my team, for gyms that I set up, the first thing I look at attitude. If there is a trainer that walks in and he's got a great attitude but he's not certified, I'll tell him, the minute you get certified, you're on my team, because I really think finding people with the right attitude is absolutely key here.
Yeah.
You need to be passionate about what you're doing. I mean, this space, I think, thrives on passion. You
Absolutely.
cannot be doing this job if you're not passionate about
Guys,
it.
there will be times when you will be dead tired,
Yeah.
and you might have to still take a class or might
Oh,
have
yeah.
to still just be at the center.
Yeah.
And that is when you will just ask yourself as to
Why
you
the hell am I
started.
doing this? Yeah. And I think, you're absolutely right. It's up to you to provide that energy. So it's not
Yeah.
just motivating you through your one workout. Imagine, I mean, there was a time, I don't know, Urmi, if you had to go through this, but when I started out as a personal trainer, there were times where I was doing 6 to 8 sessions a day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you know how those days are, right? At the end of it, like the last customer, you're like not even interested in looking at them.
And then you still
Yeah,
make sure
and
that
you
you're
have
doing- yeah.
absolutely, and you have to put that smile on and you motivate them. So yeah, it's
Absolutely.
quite demanding in that
Yeah.
sense.
In fact, even now there are days when I'm doing like close to 4 to 5 PTs,
Yeah.
and probably taking a group session, and wow, and
Yeah.
it like what motivates me actually is making sure that I get my workout in,
Right.
and then I'm like charged up to
Exactly.
that's it. I've taken care of myself,
Myself.
and I'm here to take care of you.
100%.
Because you spoke about switching careers,
Yeah.
when did you start studying to become a trainer, or did you
Right.
pursue anything related to that?
So it kind of happened seamlessly. Like I said, after my stint at Ernst & Young, I started working with Zella in the capacity, more on the management side of things. And once the place was actually open to members, which took about a year and a half from the time I joined them, I started getting quite antsy again. And I said, I want to do something a little bit more physical. It was around that time that the owner suggested that I pursue personal training. And to be quite honest, that was the furthest thing from my head to do. Because
Yeah.
you know how it was, Urmi, like back then I think people were hired based on the way they looked, and all the instructors were big, bulky men. And I said, what the hell am I going to do in this
Yeah.
space? But, again, I didn't see too many other options for me at the time. So I decided, okay, let me just hang out on the gym floor, watch other trainers. I spent 3 months doing that, replacing weights, started right at the bottom. And
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, and it gives you real appreciation for the job later
Yeah.
on anyways. And during that time, Zella had an in-house certification program, which I did. It was a 3-month program.
Okay.
And I think at the end of those 3 months, having spent time on the floor, gaining the basic knowledge for training,
Yeah.
I was pretty sure then that, this is something that I could do for the foreseeable future. It was a job that excited me. That's when I decided to invest in my education, and I traveled to the UK to get certified.
Awesome.
Like that was about 8 years ago, and ever since then, I think every year I've returned back to the UK to upgrade my knowledge, to understand different areas of fitness, and I've been doing that, for the last 8 years. Yeah.
And I just want to draw a parallel to that is
Yeah.
that there are a lot of jobs out there, and in fact most jobs that are not physical or not related to the human body, where we think that we know a certain basic skill and we are at the job,
Right.
and then we always learn on the job.
Correct.
And this is one thing I've seen in our industry, or maybe that's my perspective, is that when you're dealing with humans, you have to constantly try and be literally updated to the T,
100%.
right? And that means that we cannot just learn on the job. Yes, every day there will be some learning. You read some article, you try some exercise,
Yeah.
but you also have to go and dedicate a specific time to learn
100%.
and upgrade your skills. And I feel that should be done in every job. And because I was thinking the other day about how I can upgrade my trainers,
Yeah.
or how I can upgrade myself. And
Yeah.
I'm like, why aren't people doing that?
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah, I think that especially in this industry, because it's so unorganized, and you can literally in many gyms get a job just because you look a certain way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of complacence in the industry where people, they have a basic certification and that makes them better than most people in the industry.
Yeah.
And there's no sort of motivation to upgrade the knowledge. And I think that's why in this space you have to be extremely self-motivated to say,
Absolutely.
to this day I've been in the job 8 years, but I'm still learning, and I know that it's going to be an endless sea of knowledge that I need to sort of swim through.
Yeah.
And
the more you know, the more you
questions
know
that come up in some ways, right? So I think it's absolutely imperative for you to acknowledge the fact that you'll never know it all, and that there's always things to learn. And like you and me, I think we set aside time to increase our knowledge.
Yeah.
And with the full knowledge also that it's never going to be over.
Enough, and it's just, you keep just doing it one at a time.
Right.
And go with that.
Yeah,
right?
and absolutely. And each certification that I've done has, I felt, improved my skill set as a trainer so much, And I've most recently, I did the Exos performance training mentorship, which gives me the knowledge to work with elite athletes and sports people. So up until now, so for the last 8 years or 9 years, I've been working with the general population. And their goals are obviously quite different to an athlete's goal.
Yeah.
An athlete is already, assumed to be at peak fitness or close to peak fitness.
Yeah.
And when you go into athlete performance training, it's about pushing that peak fitness and seeing how you can improve their performance. So, like I said, my love for fitness is very strongly rooted in sport. So this is sort of my sneaky way of getting back into the sport industry, I think. But yeah, it's been a very, very interesting sort of learning curve. I did the animal flow workshop as well. And it was really interesting. And
I think the same year I did in Bombay,
I did it in Bangalore,
right?
exactly. And it was so interesting because, those kind of movements I had not done before. Perhaps you had a little bit more experience
from
with
yoga,
that. Exactly. But wow, when I did it, I was like, this is incredible. And, the things that I'm feeling and, so it was very interesting to do those two certifications, which are vastly different, but the knowledge gain was amazing.
You talked about certifications and you spoke about your journey from your company quitting and going into a startup. What qualities do you think, like you spoke about upgrading yourself, that one should look in someone else when they are choosing a coach?
Yeah, like I said, I think I've touched upon this before. Attitude and passion are the two most important qualities.
And in terms of say technical, because when both of us are quite technically sound.
Correct.
So what would you say that was the minimum requirement that not just a minimum, actually you'd say this is a good trainer, and I
with
would
regards to certifications or
knowledge more than certifications?
Yeah,
knowledge.
There are a few questions that I ask in the interview process, even if they have the certification, just to and it's honestly the most basic questions, but sometimes I'm shocked with the kind of answers they give me, and my questions mainly relate to the safety aspect of the client.
Do you want to share a couple of
Well,
them?
for example, if you have an obese person, would you put them on a treadmill, for example? And it's quite shocking that sometimes certified people are like, yeah, I'll make them run. And, and I'm like, no, you won't. That's not something you should be doing. So it's very basic questions that I ask. And like I said, it relates to safety because I think that's number one. When you come in for a training session, I think it's very sad if someone gets hurt during a training session.
Yeah.
That's to me inexcusable,
Absolutely.
And the minute someone tells me, I have an injury, I went for a training session, I got injured, that just doesn't make sense to me at all.
Yeah.
We are there for prehab, we make sure that injuries don't happen.
Correct.
So, of course, there is the freak accident that can happen.
Yeah.
But because the instructor hasn't, given you the right exercise or hasn't watched your form.
Yeah.
And if that's the reason for injury, I just think that's inexcusable.
So, prehab, guys. Prehab is basically what you do as injury prevention and also constitutes exercises that are done as part of warm-up and making sure that your body is primed for any kind of intense workout. And at the same time, if you're injured, then that's called rehab, where you are getting over the injury. So make sure that your trainer also understands what is the difference between rehab and prehab. And if they ask you what is prehab, then probably you want to research a little bit more on what they know before you commit to them. So, okay, tell me, after you quit hockey and got full into this, where hockey has taken a sort of a backseat,
Right.
what qualities stayed on with you so far? And now you started a football group in Bangalore,
Correct, yes.
which has grown from probably 14 women to 90 women.
That's correct.
And
yeah.
that's awesome. We can see how much women are taking up to any possibility of a sport or a community.
Absolutely, yeah.
And where they can push themselves physically as well, right? What qualities do you think are still there with you?
I just think that anybody who's sort of into sport, they have a certain personality type that I tend to get along very well with.
Okay.
And they tend to be very relaxed people, able to take wins and losses with unanimity in that, I think the word for that is just good sportsmanship. And you'll need that throughout life, because life is all about ups and downs, and it's about being balanced through those phases in life.
Yeah.
And there's also a fighting spirit, I think, that sports gives you. I mean,
competitive edge.
Absolutely. I mean, and not in a bad way necessarily. And it could go that way. But at times in life and in a sport, you might be at the last 5 minutes, you're 2 goals down. Like, how do you pull through from that? But we really have to dig deep and get that sort of drive to go through and play till the last second of the game, right?
Yeah.
And I think those qualities have definitely stayed through me. Life has been up and down for me, but I think the qualities that I picked up playing a sport have helped me through those times.
So this is what exactly I was talking about, the psychological aspect of playing a sport, because school probably academics is not going to prepare you how to take a loss and how to still say, okay, I have lost, but instead of feeling bad about it or letting my self-esteem get affected, I'm going to get back into the field and really try to redeem myself. And maybe if I lose today, it's fine. I'm going to win tomorrow. But the important thing is that I go again.
Exactly.
Right? That's, for me, I think that's also one of the biggest learnings.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the best things that happens is your focus, because you're so focusing on either the shuttlecock or the ball or whichever sport that you're playing.
Right.
That single-mindedness that comes for that certain period of time, I think that really helps you focus.
100%.
And in fact, I've seen that in the last 2-3 years, if I'm not as compared to where I was when I used to play ball.
Right.
My focus is way lesser now than before.
100%. I feel the same way. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's all. Tell me, I wanted to ask you, what was your first ever personal training session like?
Because God, a disaster. Well, I remember my first personal training session very, very well. Very kind of my friend to have signed up for my personal training session. So I guess it was a little bit stressful because it was somebody I knew. But I remember being all over the place. I mean, I was trying to remember things that I'd learned. I was just overthinking everything. It was definitely my worst session. But I remember finishing that session and thinking, oh my God, what was that? That was terrible. But of course, my friend was kind enough to come back for the next session, and I think I progressively got better and better at it.
That's nice. So guys, if you're thinking of becoming a coach, remember that we don't talk verbally to a lot of people, to a lot of strangers all the time on a regular basis. So if you're someone who is anyway struggling with your communication, make sure that along with your technical knowledge, you're also brushing up on
100%.
Communication. Because as a person who is constantly looking for trainers and grooming other trainers and coaches, what differentiates a trainer from a coach is the ability to communicate and also handle more than one person at one time, right? And if you work on developing yourself, the soft skills as well as the technical skills, is when you can really start to grow.
Absolutely.
And don't feel defeated if your first 10 sessions are also not up to the mark, because with every session you're getting better. And even till today, I don't know about you, Swetha, but even today I'm probably, I learned this cue, let me try and use it.
Exactly.
I learned this drill, let me try and use it. And
100%.
in hindsight, I'm like, I could have done that exercise before.
Constantly learning and constantly improving, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what is your routine like? What is your fitness routine like? So,
like I said, I've sort of sneaked my way back into sport quite a bit. So while I still want to go into the gym and train on different aspects of my fitness, I think sport has come back into my life in quite a big way. Like you mentioned, I've started a small football group, so at least once a week I'm playing football with the girls. I've started playing squash again.
Nice.
So,
where do you play that?
At the Bangalore club in Bangalore, there's squash courts there. So I've gotten sport back into my life, but completely, I found a new appreciation for fitness because I've realized now if I put in the work in the gym, for example, my game is so much better.
Correct.
I mean, I'm recovering faster, I'm quicker on the court or on the field. So I've started, like I said, playing more sport, but appreciating fitness on a whole nother level,
Nice.
Because for a long time I wasn't playing sport and all I was doing is working out. And when I first started working out, it was the old school bodybuilding type workout, because, that's what everybody in the gym was doing and I did it. And honestly, like,
guys, a lot of y'all don't know Swetha is known for her guns and her arms, and she looks very, very dainty, but the moment she flexes, you're like, whoa, what happened? Like, she just doubled up.
Yeah, not a very pleasant sight sometimes, but I enjoy my guns.
I've seen all the pleasant sides only, Swetha, don't worry. And since we are Nike trainers, guys, together, we go to a lot of events, we are training people together, and we have photo shoots. And
so my go-to pose is my guns, whereas Coach-Urmi is doing all sorts of crazy things. Like, I have nothing, I just have guns to show. So
it's like I have Swetha and Kunal at the back, like flexing, and I'm like, yo.
And Urmi's on her headstands while I'm just like, I have nothing else to offer to this photo shoot.
So this is what I'm talking about, guys. The ability to go from like serious conversations to laughter and to like really goofing each other out. That is the equation I have with Swetha, and I'm really appreciative of that. And it's so good to see someone who is doing something so different in the same industry and in a different city. And I know we've been talking about working together, and I'm sure it's
dying to work
happen.
together.
Yeah.
Yes.
And let's talk a little bit about Nike. And guys, it's not a paid plug or anything like that, but this is how we met, and this is how we both became trainers in the same year together. How has Nike been has it been a catalyst? What sort of difference has it made to your life?
I think Nike was such a turning point in my career for multiple reasons. One, I think on that first training camp where I met you, Urmi, and the rest of the girls, it was just such an eye-opener for me because it was quite lonely for me in Bangalore. When I first started training, there were 30 guys, instructors on the floor, and I was the only girl.
Wow.
And so I was like, am I in the wrong job? It just felt quite lonely. And I think coming to that Nike training camp and meeting all of you guys, and we both got along so well in that first camp. It was just very, very refreshing to see that I'm not alone in this field and there are others like me doing great stuff. And of course, from a sort of like just exposure level, Nike really sort of elevated us in many ways and gave us a lot of exposure.
Absolutely.
I mean, have a lot of people recognize me now, primarily because of my role in Nike. And of course, since then, I've been able to do so much more because of that. But yeah, Nike was, and of course, exposing us to different types of training programs as well.
Yeah.
I think I grew as a trainer as far as the delivery of my own sessions because of the training that I received from Nike.
Yeah.
And so, Nike has been very, very instrumental for my growth as a trainer. And it has obviously, like I said, made me feel not alone anymore. Having met Urmi and the whole team, it's just been incredible.
I remember the first time, like, I kid you not, it was the same thing. I'm like, oh my God, I'm meeting strong women.
Exactly.
Just like me. And where were they?
Exactly, you feel so lonely, I think, otherwise.
And if it weren't for Nike, I don't think I would have even met someone from Bangalore so soon, right?
100%.
And like a bunch of us together spending those 3 days where we are not only being tested, but we are also working out together. And
it was
we
absolutely
are,
incredible.
Like going crazy on breakfast together.
So we met other people who have big appetites like us. Sometimes we'd go to family breakfasts and dinners, and I'd be sort of pounding on the, packing my plate. And when I went to the Nike camp and I looked over and I saw everybody was eating just like I did, it felt good. But Nike was really instrumental in opening up our world, I think, as trainers. Because otherwise, I mean, I didn't see my career being a big, when I chose to become a personal trainer, I assumed that this is something that I'm doing because I'm passionate, and it's not going to lead to big things. But I think Nike really opened up my world as a trainer for sure.
Absolutely. And just sharing my side of the story, when I started with Nike, up until then I was not delivering group sessions on a regular basis. That was twice a week, and that was something that I was doing on the side, but my main job was still one-on-ones or one-on-twos training, right? And when Nike came in and they wanted to do the pilot in Mumbai, it was such a learning experience. Like, I was getting better by the week, because every week I am forced to do those 2 sessions, whether I'm nervous, whether I'm confident, whether I'm tired, or whether I'm just upbeat. And because that time Nike had the older version of the NTC app, it was mainly hit-based training. So it also pushed me to do my own training in a way that I would be on the ball in terms of fitness and in terms of form throughout the classes. And I think as a platform, it really opened up, because people started knowing me. And when after 1.5 years later, when Kinetic Living gym came up, a lot of the members who had trained previously as part of the Nike sessions walked in, because they're like, I like you as a trainer, and now I have full access to you.
Absolutely.
So it has been incredible, definitely. What about you want to tell me a little bit about how is it working right now with Sweat by Swetha, and what are the kind of clients you work with?
Correct. So Sweat by Swetha, like Urmi had mentioned before, is an end-to-end fitness service provider. So I set up commercial gym spaces, as well as I work with corporates on their wellness program. And it sort of happened by accident, to be honest. So right about the time I had been with Zella, which is the first health club that I worked with.
Sorry to cut you. What was your position at Zella? Like, what would you be just before you decide to become a trainer?
So at Zella, I had reached the position of head trainer. Okay. At that
That's
point,
nice.
at that point, I realized, the business wasn't doing too well. So I started looking outside, and I met another entrepreneur who had a space which he wanted to use to set up a gym. So he sort of called me in to interview as for the head trainer position. And during my conversation with this person, I realized that, and he realized as well, that setting up a gym is just not about having a space, putting in equipment and bringing in trainers. There's a whole operational back end that he hadn't thought about, which I sort of brought to his attention, because I had that experience with Zella. And at the end of that conversation, the offer was from be my head trainer to, will you set up this place for me? So I quickly assembled a team to set up the space. And that was my first consulting project. I still hadn't incorporated the company Sweat, but after I realized there was a need in the market, having set up this club, I went ahead and set up Sweat by Swetha, and I had a small team with me. And since then, we've set up a couple more clubs, and we handle corporates. So one of my biggest corporate right now is WeWork, and I handle the health and wellness program for WeWork in Bangalore.
That's awesome. Tell me, how's the difference between training on the floor and then being on the management side?
Okay, so hands down, like, training on the floor is definitely my passion. The consulting, like I said, happened by accident, and it was a fairly lucrative business. And, I have a solid team with me, so I find that my involvement doesn't have to be to the extent where it's taking away from my passion of training. I obviously am involved, but not to the extent, like I said, where I'm spending the whole day doing management. It's exciting. Training constantly can become quite monotonous, especially after you've done it for 8 years. You want to see something different. You want to do something different, rather. So I've sort of set up my day where the first half of my day belongs to training and the second half of my day belongs to consulting. So I've set things up in that way.
Nice. What do you like about coaching other people? What is it that really drives you to do that?
I mean, I couldn't put my finger on it. I just know that it's an extremely satisfying feeling for me after every training session, especially if I know I've delivered a really good session. And I think the real reward comes when a client comes back and says, I don't get that back pain anymore, or, I'm feeling so much stronger, or I can do more. And that's incredibly satisfying. And I don't know too many other professions that can give you that type of satisfaction, where you've actually changed a life in many ways, made such a difference. And I think there's no bigger gift than being physically fit and sound. We take that for granted so much. And when we are able to sort of take care and, take people on that journey to getting fitter and stronger, it's incredibly satisfying.
And we also learn so much in the process, right?
100%.
I see my students getting motivated and then achieving their own result. And in turn, I'm like, wow, if this person can do it, then I should try to do that on my own. It may not be the same thing, but the emotion that drives you is the same.
Oh, absolutely. I think on the one hand, we are delivering a session and we are imparting all this knowledge but on the other hand, we're also absorbing a lot from our clients as well. And that's a learning and a growth for us as trainers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the way we sort of fill in our bowl is by learning, and then when we travel or when we train by ourselves. Both of these industries we spoke about, like you felt at a point that are you in the wrong job, like you were slightly feeling out of place in a way. And when I started, I was not in a gym, so I didn't see how many men were out there, but of course I knew that there were very, very few female trainers who are doing even a good job, or even on the floor for that matter, taking up this profession. Have you come across any kind of remark or an experience where that would remind you that sort of that we are sort of a minority in this industry, or anything?
Sure. I mean, like I said, when I first started off in this space, I was one girl to 30 guys who were trainers. To be quite honest, I've never heard a remark outright. Maybe because I was intimidating to people, I'm not sure. But I knew that, there were whispers behind my back about, and especially given the fact that when I started training, it was a bodybuilding culture. So I knew a lot of the other trainers are like, what is this little girl going to do here, And of course, it did feel lonely. And at times, I was incredibly passionate. So I don't think I've ever sort of question whether this is the right job for me, but it did feel a bit strange to be one amongst 30 guys. But the fact that I'm a bit of a tomboy, I think, helps. So all the guys were my pals. But yeah, I mean, there was definitely in the initial stages, people outside the fitness industry, friends of mine asking me, are you sure this is the job you want to do? And I had quit a corporate well-paying job at Ernst & Young to, pick up weights and replace them. So a lot of people question me and my choices, and maybe at brief moments I did too. But I think when you're that passionate about something and somewhere in your gut that it feels right, that sort of takes you through. But yeah, there was, and there still is to some extent. I'm very pleasantly surprised to where the industry has reached now, with so many women who are, doing wonderful stuff. But of course, the early days, it was a very lonely space.
Absolutely.
And of course, it is still male dominated, but things are rapidly changing, I think. And, people like Coach-Urmi and are making a huge difference in that space, I think. Yeah.
And we can see, right, that the industry is just booming, and it is just in the last 3 years how it has changed, and so many new entrants coming in, and not only that they want to pursue this as a career, but also that they're looking for avenues where they can actually improve themselves, where they can test their capabilities, they can ask people for advice. And I myself have done so many fitness career counseling sessions where I'm trying to gauge what they already know, because so many of them are just not even completely fit by themselves, and they want to become teachers. So my first feedback to them is like, you need to start training first. You need to start getting fitter and stronger
because
first.
There's an appreciation that comes from going through that journey.
Yes, absolutely. And you also understand a lot of nuances that as a coach you can apply later on. Right?
Completely.
So really glad to see that we're in a space where it's going to grow bigger as a community as well. And I feel the more we, again, not being sexist, but the more female trainers that are there out there, even it can be the junior most trainer, that many women will also come onto the gym floor, because many of them are not going to the gym because they feel uncomfortable around men. Or they feel out of place. But then when you see that, hey, she's also doing something like this, which I really like. Yes, I'm motivated to do it in a way that it's not going to bother me, or what is X person going to think. And let's face it, not everyone is like, oh, I don't care about what the society is saying, or I don't care about what my friends are saying. I don't care about what the trainer's talking behind my back. A lot of people are affected by these things. And I feel in a space where you're going to get fitter and stronger, those things are completely negating the benefit of going to that place.
100%.
So creating a non-toxic environment is so important. I think that is where we need a balance of male and female as well.
Yeah.
Or even just the attitude.
100%,
right?
Yeah, and I think that's definitely changing, like you rightly pointed. In the last 3 years, has been such a sea change of how things have changed for women in the industry.
Yeah.
So it's great, yeah.
And one more thing I want you guys to really take inspiration from is that when she felt lonely or when she felt some moments of doubt, and this happened with me as well when I quit my MBA and job after that, and my friends were like, how does this justify you studying so much? And I'm like, you know what, this is my gut saying this and I need to do this. Is to sometimes you will feel like no one is agreeing with you, but if you feel, you think about something and it excites you, it deserves a certain amount of credit and deserves a certain amount of time that you dedicate to honing that skill or pursuing that interest. And tomorrow, even if you don't decide to pursue it for more than, like, say 3 months, you're still going to learn so much more.
Absolutely.
Right? And every failure is, in a way, is rooted in some learning. And
without a doubt, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. What are your future plans for Sweat by Swetha? And of course, with Nike, we are still there and we are working to get women fit as a community.
Correct.
But what about your own personal goals?
Yeah, there's 2 aspects to this. One is my goals for Sweat by Swetha, which is the consulting arm of my business. And of course, there's my personal goals as a fitness instructor. As far as Sweat by Swetha is concerned, of course, just growing my business and, coming up with programs that are suited for corporates. Of course, I already have a couple of programs in place, but I definitely see scope for improvement there. And, setting up commercial gym spaces that are, with every setup that I do, I want it to be better than the last one. I want it to be, cutting edge in some way. So, yeah, I'll continue to doing that as far as the fitness consulting aspect is concerned. As far as my personal goals as an instructor, like I said, I'm sneaking my way back into the sporting arena. So with the completion of this last training program with Exos, the performance mentorship, I am currently speaking to a bunch of sports teams to see how I can partner with them. I think I have the basic skill set now, so I'd like to shadow a head coach. And when I feel confident and I have enough experience, I think, it'll be great to take on the role of head trainer for a sporting team.
Yeah, that's awesome. All the best for that.
Thanks.
And we haven't spoken about food, like our love for, our immense love for food.
Right.
And like we spoke about how our appetites are so big.
Yeah.
And looking at you, no one will think you eat so much, right? What do you how do you, are you a foodie? Do you travel for food? Do you live to eat?
Yeah, food definitely motivates me in life, for sure. I mean, I love...
Did you guys notice the sudden change in her tone? Like,
got a little bit too excited. Yeah. No, food is very, very important to me. I don't eat to live. I live to eat in many ways. And yes, when I travel, a lot of it is centered around food and where the good restaurants are. I do my research. I think for me, I've been fortunate that, genetically, I don't tend to gain too much weight. But I've always been quite mindful about what goes in. At the same time, I allow myself, if I've put in the hard work and I feel like a treat, an unhealthy treat, I allow myself. Because I think that whenever
You're my fellow chocolate lover.
There we go, right? You've seen my refrigerator at home. Should we say more about that? But yeah, I think that it's for me, I know that if I restrict myself too much, it just ends up being not sustainable. And I think there's great joy in food, and I enjoy healthy food, luckily. It's not that I only like the bad stuff. I like the bad stuff on occasion, but I really enjoy good, wholesome, healthy food. And I think you can have all of that if you're consistent with your training and, you live in moderation, which I think I generally do.
Okay. Do you follow any philosophy to, like a lot of people do intermittent fasting or they do vegan or blah, blah, blah?
Absolutely none. No, I have no philosophy at all. Like I said, I'm fairly consistent. Like during my week when I'm at home and I'm training, I know I'm eating healthy. Breakfast, lunch and dinner. Like breakfast is, a bowl of porridge, some fruit, eggs, coffee. And my lunch is always a South Indian rice, dal sort of thing with a non-vegetarian. I'm from a place called Coog, so pork is very, very important to our diet. But yeah, I think from during my work week, I'm pretty disciplined without meaning to be. It's just the way I've set up my life. And then when the weekend comes around, and not every weekend, but every other weekend, or if I am going out to dinner, I let myself be, because I've put in the work and I'm consistent by and large.
So, did you guys listen? Whether you're professionals or whether you're amateur or just a fitness enthusiast, consistency is most important. So, one off here, there, that you are going off track, it doesn't matter. One off track, you didn't work out, that still doesn't matter. The point is to just stay on. And I know a lot of us struggle with motivation, but the more consistent you are, it doesn't matter whether you are motivated on that day, but if you just show up and you do half the thing that you had planned to do, that also can mentally completely switch you and really motivate you that if I could get through that bad day, then I'm really making some real progress.
Absolutely. And when you do something good for yourself, for your body, whether it's through your diet or through exercise, it's very rewarding. You appreciate yourself on a whole another level.
Yeah,
and you tend to want to care for yourself better.
Swetha, I'm going to end this interview with a rapid fire round.
Oh no.
I'm
terrible, by the way. I'm terrible.
Try to be as rapid as possible.
Let's see.
Ready?
I think so.
Food or cocktails?
Food.
Oats or eggs?
Eggs.
Chocolate or cigar?
Chocolate.
Boxer or beagles?
Oh, beagles.
Bangalore or London?
London.
Sweet or savory?
Sweet.
Dumbbells or football?
Football.
Squash or badminton?
Squash.
Running or training?
Training. Come on. I hate running.
I know. Awesome guys. Awesome Swetha.
Oh, I thought, are you asking me awesome guys or awesome girls? I'm like, both.
Take note of that, guys. But,
open for business.
Yes. Thanks, Swetha. This was awesome.
Thank you.
It was equally insightful, but I had not known your story in such great detail.
Right.
And I have so much more, I already did, but I have so much more respect for you that you started off just at the bottom and really worked your way up from a floor trainer to a head trainer. So all the best to you for Sweat by Swetha. And I'm sure Kinetic Living will find a way.
Yes.
We will find a way to work together.
To marry the two companies and do something amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And look forward to seeing you at one of the Nike sessions, any which ways.
Either way, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Hey everybody, it's another great week on IVM Podcast. If you're not following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Also, please remember to tell a friend about podcasting. We really want you to spread the word. You are our biggest ambassadors, I tell you every week. This week on Cyrus Says, we have creative director and producer Joel Pereira. Joel talks about working across platforms like TV, print, and digital. On Simplified this week, Chuck, Narain, and Shrika do an episode on China and its relationship with India and other neighboring countries. On The Scene and the Unseen, Amit Verma decodes the IL&FS crisis, India's banking system and regulatory regime with journalist Vivek Kaul and economist Ashutosh Datar. This week on Shunya One, Sheila Datti and I talked to Sanket Shah about InVideo and the amazing journey that they've had over there. On Geek Fruit, Jishnu and Tejas embark on a hot take fiesta of Will Smith's entire career and give the definitive ranking of all his movies. On the Kinetic Living podcast, Coach-Urmi spoke to Ashton Doctor, who is a habit coach. Listen to this episode to find out his interesting insights on eating fruits. And with that, let's go on with your shows.
And we are back for the recommendations which are Coach-Urmi-Approved. Yes, and you can savor this amazing food without any guilt because it is egg muffins. And how yummy does that sound? The prep time is less than 30 minutes and it's a great snack. And if you have more of them, then it can be as a great meal as well on the go, because I know a lot of y'all work in the afternoons and you have working lunches, and this can be a great fuel for that. It is no flour, low carb, and high in protein and fat, and you can get very creative with the toppings, just like your pizza. So what you need to do is you need 4 eggs and you need all the toppings that you would like to use, like cherry tomatoes, cheese, mushroom, bacon, peppers, basil leaves, and maybe olives as well, and a little bit of salt and pepper for taste, and chopped onions. So what you do is you preheat the oven at 180 degrees Celsius for 5 minutes. Then you whip up 4 eggs and add salt, pepper and onion. And then you pour them into the muffin molds, but only halfway, because remember, it will fluff up. And then you just pour all the toppings on top. The choice is yours. And then bake away for 20 minutes. And there you go. You can bake these in advance and then store them in tight containers, and you can then travel with them. Or you can, if you're having it on the go, just reheat it for 15 seconds and you're done. So try this out and let me know how it goes. And I'm sure you will love eggs in a different way. Next recommendation is an exercise. And since our guest, Swetha, is a hockey and a football player, I want to talk about a little bit an exercise that can help you play sports but injury-free and get better at it. And since both hockey and soccer are contact sports and they require also a lot of hand-eye coordination, my recommendations are also in line with that. So you need good reaction times and good stability in your lower body. So I would recommend simple agility drills with the agility ladder to start out with. And this can also not only improve your performance, but also help you change your routine up if you're bored of the same exercise that you've been doing. Plus, it's an HIIT workout, so make sure you're not doing it for very long, max to max for 20 to 30 minutes. And then once you're past that, you can move on to doing some single-legged ball catches where your partner is throwing and you are trying to catch it without losing balance. So it's a great drill to advance to. And this will also help you kick that ball right at the same angle, or even strike the puck with your hockey at the correct angle. Also, these exercises fire up your CNS, which is your central nervous system. So what it does is it makes sure that your mind is in the game. The third recommendation is actually a TV series. It's an HBO original documentary series called Being Serina. And I've also spoken about her in my monologue before. And this captures her pivotal moments in her professional and personal life, from being a dominant player on international tennis circuit to motherhood, how she juggles it all. It is a must watch and truly inspiring and entertaining as well. So that's it for today's episode, and I hope you enjoyed the interview as well as gonna look forward to the recommendations. You can catch this podcast on the IVM app or the IVM website called ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you get your podcast from. If you have any extra questions about fitness, health, nutrition, you can always write to me at urmi@kineticliving.in or follow me on Instagram at coach.urmi. That's it for now, guys. Stay kinetic.
Do you have a night routine? Well, everyone has one. And the to-do list usually looks like this. Brush your teeth, set that alarm, get into your pajamas, and switch off those screens. But here's one more to add to that list. Tune into the Positively Unlimited podcast for a dose of positive action and tips on how to build powerful mindsets. Episodes out every Monday on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you tune into podcasts.
Yeah. It's IVM here, let's go. We the IVM kids on the block over here. Just to talk, taking a break from producing all day, coming on this podcast cause we got stuff to say. IVM Daily is the name of the show. Monday to Friday, we ready to go. Talking about stuff in our head, we might even talk about our favorite bread. Signing out, it's IVM here, the podcast network that's in your ear.
Catch IVM Daily, Monday to Friday on the IVM Podcast app or wherever you get your podcasts.